today, we have with us Dr. Mary Grace Gomez. Ma'am is a Professor 1 at the Counselor Education Area, College of Education, University of the Philippines, Diliman. She teaches counseling and research courses at the undergraduate and graduate levels. She holds several qualifications, including a doctorate in special education. Ma'am has rich experience as a class teacher, guidance counselor, and also an administrator in the basic and tertiary education settings. She helps to assess and manage children with disability and conflict in law. It's a pleasure to have you with us, ma'am. Before I hand over the podium to Dr. Grace, I would like to inform you all that the session is for 2 hours, where 1 hour will be knowledge sharing by the expert, and the other hour we will take up the questions to be answered by the expert speaker. And after 5 to 10 minutes, the chat setting would be switched to the host and panelists. Wishing you all a very happy learning. Over to you, Dr. Grace.
Okay, thank you very much, Shivani. And thank you very much for that warm introduction. Before anything else, I would like to greet our Ability viewers and everyone who is supporting us. So I'd like to acknowledge the participants coming from the following countries. We have here Sri Lanka, Fiji, India, Bhutan, Malaysia, Myanmar, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and of course the Philippines. So welcome to this training program. Even if we are far apart, we are close at heart. And hopefully, we are here because we want to learn a lot of things about managing, handling students with special needs. And of course, when we handle students with special needs, we also handle families and we also deal with families. We have to identify some needs and concerns. I will be talking to you about a topic that I was talking with Shivani earlier, and I was talking to Lily and Reviti. It's something that is very close to my heart. It's something that I have practiced, and it is something that I have seen over the years as a counselor. So I am going to talk about gaining parental acceptance and support and the importance of parent counseling. So it is very much important that parent counseling sessions are given. And yes, teachers can have practical counseling. This is not the psychotherapy-based counseling, but we can do a problem-solving approach. And later on, I'll be talking to you about it. I'll also be talking to you about the stages that the parents are going through. Sometimes the parents might be shouting at teachers, or the parents might be in a lot of deep emotions and they would be lashing out at the teachers. But please take into consideration that it's not you. It's not you that they are having difficulty with. There are times wherein these parents would really need, they don't know where to focus their attention to, and sometimes it's you who's there, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they don't like you as the teacher. In fact, they might be very appreciative of your work. So we will be talking about some serious stuff, and we will be talking about some materials that would give people a sense of meaning and enlightenment in their careers and professions. Before I start, let's have a recap. We have had a lot of webinars, a lot of presentations, a lot of workshops on various topics before we have reached to this module. So we have had the importance of a positive mindset as a teacher. We have also discussed decoding inclusion and setting up an inclusive school environment. We also talked about setting up and running a functional student support service department. And these are the topics under it. For the workshop overview, we have here the role of the transdisciplinary team in helping children with special needs. We talked about that in the last MBT session. And then we have parental involvement and challenges due to parental over and under involvement. And we have strategies to improve outcomes in gaining parental acceptance. So that would be the overview of all the 3 sessions that are in this workshop. And then we also talked about diverse special needs conditions. So I handled this session. We talked about developmental delays, physical disabilities. We talked about muscular and skeletal disabilities under physical disabilities and possible accommodations that could be done. And then we have sensorial disabilities, the deaf and hard of hearing, and of course, people who have blindness or visual impairment. And then we also talked about internalizing and externalizing disorders. We talked about depression as it is on the rise. There is a rise in the statistics among children and teens who have depression. So we talked about that. And we will have a session on both internalizing and externalizing disorders sometime next year. And then we have the role of the student support services in an inclusive school. So in the recap, I will be mentioning that we have here a transdisciplinary team, and these are the services involved in an inclusive school. I'm talking about a multi-country approach, and some of the countries may have school counselors, but others might have school psychologists. And then, of course, you have special education teachers, and then the regular teachers, of course. You have sign language interpreters if you have children who are deaf and hard of hearing. You can have braille readers and experts in orientation and mobility if you have children with visual impairment. And of course, there are other specialists on the team. So these are all the services involved in an inclusive school. And then we have here the transdisciplinary team. So we have the SPED teachers, the regular teachers, counselors, psychologists, developmental psychologists for some schools, occupational therapists, the speech and language pathologists, the physical therapists, the medical doctors, and the social workers. All of these professionals work hand in hand in order to help the child with special needs. There is a diverse number of disabilities. We have a lot of disabilities present. Therefore, we would have these experts on deck whenever necessary. Or the parent could serve as the case manager, and then the parent would be talking to the various experts in the field.
Dr. Grace, just a
Okay.
moment. Sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Can
Yes.
you change it into a full screen mode because it's not clearly visible? It would be
Oh,
helpful.
it's not clearly visible. I thought that it was on a full screen mode already. I'm
What
very
we had
sorry.
checked earlier.
Okay,
You can
yes.
stop share and reshare again, ma'am. That would
Okay, I'll stop share and then research. Sorry for that.
no
So if
problem.
it's not that clear, we are on live. Therefore, we have these things that are happening. Okay, so we have to go with the flow, and we have to, of course, zoom to 100%. Exit. It's on full. So it's on full screen. So I would be sharing this ability. Let me have the settings, right? Sorry for that. And then we continue. Gaining parental support. So I think that it has to be full screen view. And then we go to zoom to 100, enter full screen. Okay, so here, is it better? I think it's better. So let's go back to the discussion. We have here in this session, we will see that parental involvement is key to ensure the success of children with special needs. It's very much important that the parents are involved in the lives of their children. We see that, and we see that if parents are always involved, they are trying their best, they are always there to support a child with special needs, you will see a lot of success. And then research shows that as parents become more involved and empowered in the special education process, the outcomes of the students improve. And sometimes they overachieve. So, for example, the doctors, developmental pediatricians would say that your child will never be able to graduate from the sixth grade. But because of parental involvement, because of encouragement, the child was able to graduate. I happened to interview a mother who has a son with cerebral palsy. The doctor told them that the son would never be able to walk. But the son wanted to be a figure skater. So the mother tried her best to encourage the child, and she read about therapy. She read about physical therapy. She would massage coconut oil. In the Philippines, coconut oil is used as a medicinal product. And she believed that this coconut oil, by massaging the limbs of her child, he would be able to go and be a figure skater. And then after some time, he did become a figure skater. And it surprised his doctor because not only the child was able to walk, he was able to figure skate. And in fact, his story was featured in one of the national television programs. And then research indicates that parental participation leads to a host of outcomes for children with special needs. And this includes a greater generalization and maintenance of treatment gains. And then there is greater continuity in intervention programs and a higher level of parent satisfaction. Of course, if the parents are involved, the child would be achieving more, and because of this achievement, the parents naturally would be more satisfied. They would be happier about the therapy outcomes and educational outcomes. Here are some areas in which parents can support their children. Of course, it's academics. They help in the assignments, they help them understand the lessons. Activities of daily living. It's very important that the parents show their children how to do activities of daily living. How do you brush your teeth? How do you change your clothes? It's not always that a nanny would be helping these children. The parents themselves need to be involved in the education of their children. And then, of course, the psychosocial area, managing emotions, trying their best, prompting them to be the best that they can be, understanding them when they are having difficulties, and other practical areas in life. These are the areas in which parents can support their children. Of course, before they became parents, it would start with pregnancy. And any pregnant mother who is expecting a child expects this child with much joy. And they would have high hopes for their children. They would have great plans for the children. Oh, when my child grows up, I will train my child to be an engineer, a doctor, an actor, an actress. This child would do great. And they would dream about the future. Any pregnant and expecting mother would definitely have high hopes for their children. They would have big dreams for their kids. And any parent would have big dreams for their children. However, when there is already the results of tests, and when the doctors say your child has a disability, that eager anticipation can immediately turn into a frustrating experience. I have talked to a lot of mothers who just had their children diagnosed with disability, and even some fathers, and they would cry. They would weep in front of me. And we would talk for an hour, and they would weep for the whole hour. Some of them would tell me, you know what? I don't know what the doctor really told me. What I just know is that my daughter doesn't have any future anymore because she cannot hear. All I know is that my child was diagnosed to have autism, intellectual disability, and my whole dream of sending my children to the best universities seemed to collapse in front of me. It seemed to it that the whole world collapsed in front of me. It's not just a segment, it's the whole world collapsing. And they would even have some somatized pain. They would tell me, it's so painful in the chest area. I could just feel the pain. And I could just feel it because I heard that my child has a disability. It could really be a frustrating experience. Now, as teachers, of course, the parents, sometimes they observe that the child has a disability and there's something quote unquote going wrong at home. But oftentimes, it is the teachers who first recognize that there is something wrong, or something is not, oh, something uh, doesn't work, something is not working, something must be missing here. So how do we inform parents that the child has certain limitations or disability? And that would be a problem among the teachers. First, of course, is to inform the parents. You inform the parents, and prior to the discussion, have anecdotal reports present, checklists, observation checklists, teacher reports, and then identify important points that you want to talk about. Be very objective, and you can even rehearse. So be as objective and calm as possible. Describe the behavior. Do not describe the child. Always focus on the behaviors manifested. Identify clearly what you have observed. And then, during the discussion, convey a lot of support. Speak in a manner that would be very comforting and calming. Convey empathy. Look at the parents. Okay? Express that you want to support their child and you value their child. Initially, start with all the good points that you see. Your daughter, your son is doing great. In fact, he tries his best. He is always present. And then state all the observations for improvement. These are the limitations. I have noticed that he gets a 0 in all the quiz. I noticed also that he would process the activities in our PE class late. After everyone has already completed the task, that is only the time when when your child would be processing the experience and would be executing all these PE moves. And then, after all the limitations have been stated, immediately convey all the positive observations that you have and state the need for assessment. Restate the good points and restate the importance of getting an assessment. If you get an assessment, we would have, we would identify what needs to be programmed. If you have an assessment, we would be able to make a clear-cut criteria of what the priorities would be. We would be able to tailor fit the materials, the instructional procedures for your child. So it's very crucial that you inform the parents. You can practice it. You can have a dialogue with your friends. You can practice this with a friend, because I know that breaking bad news isn't easy at all. And then, of course, when you finally convince that the parent has have a diagnosis or have the child assessed, you will be confronted with different emotions coming from the child. You have in this stage to demonstrate compassion through listening and listening intently. In fact, there is a term called third ear listening. So you listen and you look for verbal and nonverbal cues. You become genuine because parents will know if you are faking it. Ask the parents the possible support that they might need from the school, because they might have some ideas, and it is best for you to level the expectations during this time. And then always enable the parents to ask questions. It's okay to ask questions. If I can answer the questions, I will be answering them. There is no shame to this. You can always ask questions. And then these parents would be feeling different kinds of emotions. And I am here also to discuss these different types of emotions that they feel. What are the stages that they go through? In fact, in the literature, it says that there is a grieving process that happens because, of course, their dreams all of a sudden are shattered. So allow them to be sad, allow them to grieve about what is happening. When they are angry, they are not necessarily angry at you. When they raise their voice, they are not necessarily angry at you. They are angry about the situation. Sometimes there is a lot of self blame. A lot of mothers would tell me, I think I made a mistake when I was pregnant. A lot of self blame is on the parents. And sometimes, also, if you talk to mothers or fathers, there would be a lot of argument happening between spouses. So you would definitely have someone who is angry because perhaps he or she, the mother, the father, could not express really the feelings to the husband, to the wife, or to the child. So definitely, when they see you, you might be the one who will be receiving all of this anger. But it doesn't mean that they're angry at you. And then as you talk to them, the best way for you to comfort is to listen to them. You listen to them, you listen to the story, and you could say also that it must be hard. It must be really difficult, and I don't have any words to say. But I'm here to listen and I'm here to support. Do not give any false hope. Do not say, oh, in 10 years, oh, in 10 years, everything will work out well. Do not give false hope. What if it doesn't work out well? You are just there. You can only say that I'm here to listen. I'm here to answer some questions if you have any questions. And I'm here to be with your child in school. And I will try my best as a teacher to teach your child. There is a research by Clayton, and it identifies some of the statements that the parents would want to hear. So this came from his research. Parents during this stage would want to hear that they are not alone. So you can say, I am here for you. I am supporting you. I am one with you in your pain. And then there's also a supportive statement that say, you also deserve to be cared for. You're very tired already. You also deserve a break, and it's okay for you to take a break. It's also okay to say that you aren't perfect, and that's okay. You can make mistakes along the way. They would like to hear an affirmation that they're strong. So you're a superhero. You must really be strong. And then you could also say that, okay, go to therapy, but you could also make therapy play for the child. And you could also let them view the mindset that therapy can be play for their child with special needs. Okay. You could also say, set some time to enjoy. It's okay to enjoy and take a break. Have a stroll in the park. Go on a vacation. And then sometimes they would need the affirmation, the validation coming from you that you won't always get it right. Sometimes you will make mistakes along the way. And when this happens, forgive yourself. Sometimes the parents would have to hear this statement. You will be obligated at times to make heart wrenching decisions, decisions on placement, decisions on where to send the child to school, or even some heart wrenching decisions that you will let the child pass on in life. Sometimes, of course, disabilities can have other health conditions and illnesses. And I have also talked to some parents who had to make heart-wrenching decisions of letting their child pass, of signing a DNR form. It's really heart-wrenching. And as a counselor, I have journeyed with some people who had to make heart-wrenching decisions. This might be the case if the child has a chronic health condition. And parents sometimes, when they are faced and when they ask you about decisions that they have to make, this statement might come in handy. You could also validate by saying, being a parent is hard. Being a parent to a child with extra needs is extra hard. And I do salute your dedication in raising this child with special needs. Parenting a child with special needs is like running a marathon. It's not a sprint. You have to go slowly and surely. Yes, sometimes progress will be slow. You need to be patient. They also have to hear, don't lose yourself. Spend time for self-care. Spend some time to rejuvenate after a very hard day. And it is very much important to keep your sense of humor. I would always advise parents and individuals going through a very difficult situation to always track down, write down, journal it, all the incidences in a day that made them happy, that made them smile. And then they have to savor this experience so that they end the day on a high note. They could savor this experience before going to bed. Instead of savoring the problems, why don't you savor these good things that happened to you? It might be a cup of coffee that you really enjoyed. It might be the birds chirping outside, a soft breeze, or someone smiling at you, or someone who told you, okay, I'll take care for your child for 1 hour. So keep all of these experiences, journal all of these experiences, and at the end of the day, think of all of these positive experiences that happened to you. And then celebrate little things. There can be little milestones that you can be happy. The first time your child said, Mama, Mommy, the first time your child took his or her first step. Celebrate those little things. And you will find out that you have a lot of things to celebrate in that person's life, your child. And then some parents would be mean and nasty. So some parents would put them down, and some parents, of course, would say a lot of terrible things. Don't let the typical parents get you down. And then sometimes parents would be comparing themselves and parents would be comparing their children. It's okay not to be that parent. The circumstances, the characteristics of that child is different from yours. It's okay not to be that parent. So it's okay that your child is attaining developmental milestones at his or her own pace. And then I would always tell this to couples. Make time for your marriage. Difficult conditions of children are contributory to separation. So there's the parents file for a divorce or parents look for other partners because of difficulties in caring for a child. I have done research on this and the literature also supports this. So it's very much necessary to make time for your marriage and make the marriage work. Spend some time together as husband and wife. You go out on a date, you watch a movie, and for an hour each week, just be with yourselves, do what you have to do in order for you to keep that romance alive. You will need a lot of love towards each other because you are raising a child with special needs. That child needs extra care. That's why the parents have to work hand in hand. And then They also want to hear trust your instincts. There could be a lot of insecurity that is happening. So trusting your instincts would be a very soothing remark that a parent would hear. And then sometimes here is where the problem happens. There could be parental over involvement and there could be parental under involvement. So you have here the types of parents. You have an authoritarian parent who's stern and punitive and very demanding. And then you have a permissive parent who would be giving everything that the child wants, the indulgent parent. They're sensitive and responsive, yes, but they don't enforce any limit. And the child can have whatever he or she wants. And then you have the uninvolved parent. Yes, sometimes they can be stern and punitive and they don't enforce limits and they are also uninvolved. They are very strict, but they don't want to be involved. They want output, but they're not involved. When you are a parent, even for regular children, children without disabilities, you have to have you have to be in the middle of enforcing limits and showing them that you are sensitive and responsive. You have to let them achieve specific standards, and at the same time, if they don't reach the standards, you are there to be responsive and you are there to say, it's okay. I'm here for you. Let's try again. When the diagnosis comes. And I am discussing this to teachers and to parents because I would like you to be on the same page as the parents. The parents are going through these stages, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they will go through the phases sequentially. More recent research would say that these stages of grief model are not necessarily followed sequentially. And then you may already be in an acceptance phase, but all of a sudden, you could be in severe grief and you could be angry and you could not accept the situation again. Later on, I'll be talking to you about the grief ambush. So why am I using the model of grief of Kubler-Ross? Yes, of course, that model has been used for people who have lost a loved one. But when you talk about children with disabilities being born to families, the literature also talks about a kind of mourning. And in fact, the literature calls it a double mourning. So parents would also go through this grief. Similarly, if you get a disability at a latter period, you have an adventitious disability, these stages of grief can also be applicable. If a body part was lost, these stages of grief can also be applicable. But it doesn't necessarily mean that these stages are in sequential order when they occur. More recent literature says that it doesn't necessarily mean that you would be in denial first. Sometimes you can be depressed, and then there would be denial, and then you would be angry, and then you would be accepting, and then go back to bargaining. So the stages of grief doesn't necessarily mean that it's a linear sequence. When I read the literature, and I have also heard this remark among some parents, they would say this statement: it's a grief only some could understand. What a powerful statement. It's a grief that only some could understand. So what parents feel? This is the research done by Moses, and this is the most recent research that I have seen on what parents feel when the child is diagnosed to have a disability. So first, there's fear. Why is there fear? There's a lot of uncertainties about the future. I planned that this child would go to college. I planned that this child would go hiking with me. Now I can't do all of these things. So in order for the parents to confront the fear, there should be recognition. It initially brings the parents into denial because there is fear of the unknown. However, as we cope with it, we will unearth a lot of fears about the future, and we could have some what if scenarios. And this is very cognitive behavior therapy. So the parent would say, what if my child doesn't succeed? What if my child doesn't live independently? And I would ask, what if your child gets to live independently? What if your child gets to surpass the limitations that are set before him? We will never know unless we try. So somehow that challenges the thought that there would be a bleak future. Because most of the time, something could be done and there would be achievements in one way or another. Let us remember, for both parents and teachers, the teachers could say this to the parents, that we can only control the present. And we can only focus on the things that we can control. We cannot control the future because the future hasn't happened yet. Next, parents feel a lot of guilt. So how do you recognize it? You identify the feeling of guilt by answering, did I do something to cause this? Some mothers would say, was it the drink that I had when I knew that I was pregnant? Was it the second hand smoke that was present? So sometimes there's a lot of self-blame. But if you're talking about ADHD, you're talking about autism, you're talking about intellectual disability, was it really the mother's fault? Sometimes the mothers would say, did I really take care of myself when I was pregnant? And then there would be a blame. Why me? Of all the mothers in the world, why me? And then how to cope with it. Talking about the guilt feelings. And then we have to confront the beliefs that are important. There's also such a thing called core beliefs. What are these beliefs? And do these beliefs need to be challenged? We have to recognize that our beliefs have no effect on what happened in the past, the present, and the future. I talked to you in the session of positive behavior supports that there is a need for you to challenge the belief. I had a worksheet on the worry decision tree, and that is one way of challenging the core belief. So what are these core beliefs about mothers, about themselves when they were pregnant? I didn't take care of myself. I didn't comply with the doctor's orders. I'm a lousy parent. So what are these core beliefs about yourself? These have to be confronted one by one. And you have to examine if there is veracity to this belief. Chances are these are just beliefs that you have. And these have really no effect on the outcome of the child having a disability. Next, depression. In the depressive state, parents could be emotional, they could cry a lot, and they could also be very angry. They're angry at the world, they're angry about the circumstances, but they're not necessarily angry at you. Most of the time, they're not angry at you. So how do you recognize this form of depression? We identify the feeling of sadness and isolation during the time of diagnosis. I had a very difficult time. I am undergoing this kind of grief. I'm depressed because all of my dreams were shattered. Now I have to rethink of what I should do. I should be thinking about therapy, intervention, etc. And then there's questioning of competence and value. Am I really a good mother? Am I really a good father? Am I really a good parent? Should I really have this child? And then there's also coping with depression and anxiety. It can help to know that what you are feeling has been experienced by many others. Remember, if you perform poorly in a test, you would ask around, what's your score? What's your score? What's your score? And if you find out when you were studying that everybody else got a low score, somehow it makes you feel good. Knowing that there are also other people in the same boat with the same condition would help you realize that I'm not alone. And somehow you would gain some self confidence that I can do it. Because if others were able to manage it, I could also do it on my own. And then support groups can help because you will know that you are with other parents and you could share best practices in support groups. And then we identify the protective factors. It's very much important that we enhance the protective factors. These are factors related to health. So I'm taking care of myself by exercising. I'm taking care of myself by eating the right food. So health, coping, having good thoughts, and then having social support. It's very much important that you identify all the social support that could be present. For example, who do I go to if I need to have a break? Who do I go to in case I have financial problems? So social support is very necessary. This, these are protective factors. And then what do parents feel? Denial and anger. So how do you recognize it? They would say, this cannot be happening to me. This cannot be happening to my family. This is all a dream. And then when they are confronted with the fact that the situation, that this disability is really there, denial rapidly merges with anger, which may be directed towards the medical personnel or the teaching personnel, like the teacher and whoever gave the information about the child's diagnosis. How do parents cope with denial and anger? Of course, these are inevitable and these are expected because these parents love this child very much. And these are hopes and dreams that seem not to be coming to pass anymore. We recognize denial and anger are valuable steps in learning how to let go of the feelings that these parents have. At this stage, professional help might be needed. If, for example, the parents are no longer talking to each other, they no longer, for example, enjoy their life, they don't want to get out of bed, they don't want to take a bath anymore because they feel that the world has collapsed on them. This is a time when help is needed. Perhaps you should see a mental health practitioner in your area. How to help as teachers? First is to listen to their story, and it's empathizing with their story. We also acknowledge that there is pain. You can say, yes, it must be really painful. Yes, it must really hurt you. And I do commend you because you are still standing up to now. What you have gone through might be hell. And I really admire that you are still here trying to get things into perspective, trying to patch things up. I do recognize your pain. That would be a way of validating the parents. Nonverbal responses such as a pat on the back, nodding, or sometimes they would ask you, why? And you also don't know why most of the time. You could say, there are no words to describe it. And even I don't have any words because that pain must be really great. That sorrow that you are feeling must really be great. I have no words to describe it. And then there's recurrent grief among mothers. And the study of Brown stated that there are stages of grief when mothers experience grief over the diagnosis of their children with disability. Deriving meaning out of the situation and catharsis is needed by the mothers. So for the initial diagnosis, of course, there would be expectations. So they expect the best and then they realize, oh no, it's not the best. Oh no, something is wrong. There could be shock and disbelief of the medical diagnosis, and the expectation of a healthy child was confronted with the reality that the child has a disability. They have to live with the fact that the child has a disability. The diagnosis was described to be a real blow on the head, and it's an aftermath of a feeling. Some would say that the world has collapsed over them. And there's a wide variation of internal and external manifestations of this pain. Some would not talk, some would fight with their spouses, some would be in lost in thought. They would just be like that with nothing else to say. They would be in oblivion. And then in the study, it's a loss of personal dreams. There's failure and blame, resentment, and the mothers felt alone in the marriage. That's why it's very important that you support mothers, because in the literature, mothers need more support because they take the blow and they hurt more because they carried the child. And then looking at the child and knowing that the child has special needs made them feel that they were a failure as women, as mothers. And then there is a solemnity process, and the process is called double mourning. This is the period after diagnosis. So, okay, now that I know that it's a reality that my child has special needs, I know who the child really is, and I know the issues that we are dealing with, grief appears. And this is different from the earlier grief because this is a period of double mourning. So for my dear teachers, these parents need extra love and care because they are in double mourning. They have already recognized that there is death in their hopes and dreams for the child. And there are also death in both hopes. There's also death in both hopes and dreams for the parents. So it's called a double mourning phase. Sometimes they could be very emotional, sometimes they could be really angry. So at this phase, it is very much important that we understand the parents and we give them all the unconditional support that we could give, even if we are just someone who listens to them. And then there is a reaction and response phase. There's deep personal grief, and this is triggered by their needs and aspirations for their child. And this would be changed irrevocably. All of a sudden, your dream of your child becoming a basketball player, a baseball player, a cricket player, this won't happen anymore. That's why depression, regret, guilt, fretting about mothering comes in. And grief serves as a reminder of what might have been. Very painful. And then there's the society. There's exclusion and inclusion. There could be societal exclusion. And recurrent grief could be aggravated by the fact that there are societal factors involved. And this is exclusion. There's a passive non-acceptance. Sometimes people passing by would look at the child and then they would talk and then would look again and then they would talk. And of course, that would bring much pain to a mother. So Sometimes also because the mothers have to focus on their child with disability, there could be a lack or loss of friendship on the mother's part. So the mother would feel that there is societal exclusion. There's also societal inclusion. So to ameliorate this grief, mothers rationalize that people are pretty well wrapped up in their own situations. And because people don't listen to her and then her child, the mothers would have advocacy work for their children. There would be coping strategies, and these coping strategies could be done creatively. Sometimes humor would come in, and they would try their best to protect themselves from public judgment. Advocacy is one of the avenues wherein public judgment could be minimized. There would be a pivotal point. There is crisis and coping. So, a crisis of accumulation of both personal and societal stressors involve fear and anxiety. Yes, there's crisis, but because this crisis has happened for quite some time, I now will learn how to cope. And as human beings, we are hardwired to cope. And the crises were often linked with cherished values such as friendship, cultural norms, family support, work, and self-agency. There would be a crisis in this area, and there would be misunderstanding, but there would always be means of coping. And then meaning making slowly comes in because there would be a recognition that there would be lost milestones. And if you are a parent who would be looking at developmental milestones and checking if the child is at the developmental milestones or behind the developmental milestones, there could be recurrent grief and there could be frustration. Oh my goodness, again, you haven't reached this milestone. And of course, as a parent, it is natural for you to worry. However, these lost milestones can be replaced with accomplishments of the child. And when that child takes those little steps towards accomplishing these developmental milestones, there could be much joy. Therefore, parents should always have self talk. So, yes, I have this child with disability, but there could be dreams that could be reestablished. I could have plans that are reformulated. And who knows, in the future, my child might be successful. So you plan, you recalibrate the dreams, and you replan your life. And then comes meaning making and agency. As the child moves into increased independence of young adulthood, need for support also increases. Sometimes parents would say that it would be more tiring for them. So there is increased independence, but there would be also times wherein the parents would say that it's very tiring because they would, especially if there are physical needs that have to be taken care of with the child. But as the child moves into adulthood, the parent would see that, oh, there's independence. Oh, there's lesser need for therapy. Oh, this is the time that you can learn a livelihood, learn a trade, learn a profession that you might probably engage in. And then you would view the child with endearment at this phase. This is a wonderful gift. This child is a gift to me. This child made my family whole. This child is the anchor. This is a wonderful gift, a dear little soul to everyone. And that child brought me great joy. You now have meaning making. You now have new dreams. You have a new focus in life. So there's meaning making in life when that disability happens. There is hope. And there is always a possibility of post traumatic growth. Even if there was a difficult diagnosis that you had to contend with, there is also hope. And there could be post traumatic growth because you can always dream of new dreams. You could always replan and recalibrate. And with this, you would be able to be contented with life and count these little blessings that happen every single day. I like this statement on resilient grieving by Dr. Lucy Ho. The way we choose to think and the way we choose to act have a substantial influence on our well being. How do we choose to think? How do we choose to act? Yes, my child has a disability. I have cried over it. I have grieved over it. Now I will have to contend with the fact that my child is alive and I continue living with my child. I am going to problem solve. I am going to think of the best possible program that I could give to my child. So it's a refocus of thinking. It's very necessary that we choose life and not death. We don't lose what we have to what has lost. Your child has life. Your child is breathing. Your child is there. There might be delays, but your child is alive. And your child is that valuable gift that you have. Teachers should enable the parents to recognize that the child has life. The child can achieve and the child can give you much joy. If ever these developmental expectations or if ever these this child comes into therapy, comes into an educational program and could live independently or semi-independently, the child could achieve, that would change the parents' perspective. And you have to little by little enable these parents to understand that there is still life. And while there is still life, you can still do something about the situation. So that's resilient grieving. Now, there are some tips that I am sharing to teachers and to parents. And teachers, because you will be coaching them. So, this is a practical strategy. This is anchored in positive psychology. And in positive psychology, we have very practical examples given. In fact, you don't need to be a licensed therapist, counselor, psychologist to practice the skills taught in positive psychology. So in the book, this is very practical in resilient grieving. Hone says that the first strategy is there are no rules. Do what you have to do. What would make you release all of those emotions? What would make you focus your attention? And remember that you choose where to focus your attention. Of course, the child had a disability, was diagnosed to have it. You would naturally feel bad about the situation. So it's okay to cry and it's okay to grieve about the situation. Strategy number two, take your time. And it's okay to take a few days off work or to focus on your child first. It's okay to do that. And of course, it's also okay to rest. Do not forget to rest. You might get burned out. And then strategy number three, when there is pain, feel the pain, walk right in it, feel it, and weep. Yes, this is a feeling that we have, and it symbolizes loss of many things. It's okay to cry, and it's okay to weep. This is really uh, an experience that would make you cry, would make you weep. It's really painful. And in fact, as I was writing, I was creating this slide. I would I relived all the experiences, all the stories, all the vignettes that I heard, feeling the pain, walking through it, and weeping. It's being in the moment. It's necessary for us to confront this painful emotion because this painful emotion exists and we acknowledge that it happens. Feeling the pain is a process wherein we could gradually heal ourselves and we would be able to process the situation that indeed something quote unquote terrible happened and we grieve. And then we choose where to focus our attention because we have a limited processing and we cannot understand everything. And it's okay for you to tell the parents that you cannot understand everything. And it's okay if you don't understand everything. We're learning. I would also suggest to parents to stop the blame game. Parents, spouses fight when there's a disability present. I in how many sessions have I seen parents shout at each other, it's your fault. Your line has all of these retards in the line. Oh no, it's your fault. Your uncle has mental retardation, intellectual disability. Your father has this. Your father's brother has this. Or your uncle is weird. So they would fight in front of each other. But blame and hatred are like gifts. And the more you give these gifts, they seem to multiply. Sometimes it would be best not to bestow these gifts of anger and hatred. So choose where to focus your attention. In this situation, I really encourage the parents to focus their attention on therapy, on intervention practices that have to be given, on modifying what needs to be modified. Beware of the grief ambush. So in Kubler-Ross model, you could see the person already has accepted the grief. So sometimes I would talk to parents, I have already accepted the fact that my child has Down syndrome, has autism, has intellectual disability, has cerebral palsy. But there would be times that you would be remembering that dream that you had when you were pregnant. And then there would be a grief ambush. And grief can strike any time. So beware of this ambush. And because you are more prepared, you would be able to tell yourself, yes, I feel sad about that dream that has been lost, but I have new dreams. I have new hopes. So you could always do thought replacement. I have new hopes and I have an action plan to achieve all of these new dreams that I have. And then, as the parents pick up the pieces, re-establishment of routines would be necessary. It tells our brains that we are safe. We are ready to go back. We have the routine. We are ready to go back to our life. So we are ready now. We have the routine of, for example, we will be waking up at this time. You will be going to school, to therapy. This is what we would do at home. This would be the homework that we have to do. This would be the medical intervention. So reestablish the routine and it tells our brains that we are ready to spring back. The predictability of the routines that we have makes us safer and this minimizes stress. And when you have a child with disability, it would be best for you to have a routine of what to do so that you can accomplish a lot of things. Remember also that family resilience is very important. At this time, let us keep the family together. Accepting the condition. There is such a thing called radical acceptance. And when I say radical acceptance, it doesn't mean that, okay, I accept the situation and I surrender to it. No, it doesn't mean that way. When you radically accept the situation, this means that you accept that the child has disability. Nothing can be done. Period. He has a disability. Without judgment or prejudice, he has a disability. I accept it. But I won't accept the fact that he can do nothing. Now that I have accepted that particular condition, it's now time for me to problem solve, to think of strategies, to think of possible interventions for my child. And then do not forget to feel and savor the good experiences that happen to you every day. I would also say that if you have other children, you also have to spend equal time with them. This is not the time to create sibling rivalry. This is a time for family unity. So also think of the other siblings, other children, and let them bond. Treat your children equally. And then explain to them that sometimes this brother of yours, this sister of yours has special needs. There would be some times that I would need to care for them, but I will make it up to you. And then coping thoughts. This too shall pass. I will succeed. I will be able to go through this day. What are the coping thoughts that you can say again and again? And then hunt the good stuff. What are the good things that you can learn? For example, let's have this analogy of the pandemic. Yes, the pandemic brought forth a lot of sickness, a lot of grief, a lot of suffering. But there are some gifts that it brought us, such as this Zoom webinar, this Zoom gathering, this Zoom workshop. Never would we think that we could talk as one. We could have this robust discussion. We could have this workshop with a lot of countries. And we would be able to meet in through the internet in cyberspace. We would be able to talk to each other in this session. We would be able to interact through the chat box. So let's hunt for the good stuff. What are the good things that are happening, and what is this disability teaching me? Who knows? You might be able to think of a strategy that would make your child very successful. Okay? Now let's go to some case studies. And here I would need some audience participation. So first, you have observed that Sita has been hand flapping whenever she feels bored. She also has stereotypic behaviors and she is not doing well in class. What steps will you take as a teacher to inform the parents? Let's view some reactions in the chat box. So what will you tell the parents? If you have a student whom you see hand flaps and then she feels that she doesn't do well in school, etc. What would you do? Any ideas from the okay, keep her engaged in some activity. That's very good. So meeting with the parents, yes, you can meet with the parents, talk to the parents, find out about the behavior at home. Yes, very good. Distract her with some positive academic activity. Yes, but you also have to inform the parents and then note down the behaviors that are observed. Yes, that is very good, Joseph. And then for Anna, ask for a meeting with the parents. Yes, we asked that. Irish, list down the observations and take notes and dates. Yes. From Nima, call a conference with her parents. Yes. From Isabel, I will ask if some observations were seen at home. Yes. From Mitali, I hope I'm pronouncing your names correctly. Please forgive me if I don't. Ask parents about the occurrence at home. For Rosemary, ask the teacher. As a teacher, you have to talk to the parents positively. From Gay, document the observations prior to the meeting. From Maria Luisa, first I would keep an anecdote on the patterns of the behavior. From Jessiel, meet and suggest an evaluation. From Teresa, I will ask the parents if the behavior is seen in the house. From Rubina, the parents need to be encouraged. Yes. And from Menuga, make her engage in different activities. Yes. But we inform the parents also because they need to be informed and they need to have their child assessed because this is characteristic. These are the red flags for autism. Okay. Involve her in some activity. Yes, Indra. From Lay, I will ask for a conference for the parents. Yes, from Hazeline, we will take note of the activities, the positive and the negative activities. Yes, from Eder, document and set a meeting. Yes, from Sonia Batia, make note of the observations. From Rabia, ask parents if she does the same at home. From Marilu, ask for a meeting. From Nikki, ask the parents. From Irene, Ask if the child has a similar behavior at home. From Isa, write down the observations. From Arnold, anecdotal record. Very good answers. From Nina, inform the parents. From Wendy, inform the parents. From Khadija, first I would say if the action is not harming anyone, then it's okay. Then it's an action to help her own self. Yes. And then from Sudha, fine motor activities would help. Yes. But of course, you have to have the child assess. I do agree with you that fine motor skills could also help. And there would be a need, there might be a need for the child. From from Bandana, ask the parents if such behaviors also happen at home. Yes, there are a lot of answers here. Okay, they're coming in. Okay, from Dara, tell about your concerns and recommend to get a diagnosis. From Dino, talk to her. From Sonam, needs to be a structured routine. Okay, from Siri, carefully record all the observations. From Shaista, recording observations with the parents. From Maria Luisa, have a conference with the parents. From Sweta, call for a conference. From Edeline, always encourage the parents to be open like a friend. From Wong Hee, inform the concern and suggest to visit professional. Very good. These are very good suggestions that you could talk to the parents. You could talk to the parents and you could encourage them to get support. And also, I would like to inform you that sometimes you have to talk to the parents multiple times because there is such a thing as the trans-theoretical model. So, if the parent is in the pre-contemplation phase, even if you tell them to get consultation, they will not agree. Sometimes it takes several times before the parent comes into the contemplation phase, wherein the parent is thinking about getting an evaluation or assessment. And then hopefully the parent goes into a determination phase that really I am decided to get an intervention, and hopefully this materializes to action. And eventually there would be intervention. And then this is the second case. So Mr. and Mrs. Lestari came to you devastated after knowing the diagnosis of their son. The diagnosis was muscular dystrophy, and it just informed you because you are the teacher and they trust you. What will you do in the meeting? So what are the things that you can do to help Mr. and Mrs. Lestari if you were the teacher? So how would you provide comfort to the parents? How would you convey support as a teacher? You have here parents, listen and be empathic. Very good. Be empathic and listen, Irene and Isa. Very good. To listen to them. What are the things that you can do? Let's use the chat box. Okay, from Goma, some extra, some advice. Yes. From Anupama, okay, from Atumpama, also on empathy. From Nasha, acknowledge the parents and their emotions. From Maris, be empathic. From Janice Musuka, make them understand what they are going through. Have motivational goals. From Ugyen, listen empathetically. From Marites, pre-planning with the parents. From Rashmi, listen to the parents. From Renuga, support and guidance. From Namita, moral support. From FIBA, listening to the parents to help their child. From Ruby, what is muscular dystrophy? It's the condition wherein the muscles become very weak and then the child loses movement. From Gay, acknowledge your concerns and worry, and then show empathy. From Irish, assure them that you will do your best. Okay. From Vina, make them understand that they are not alone. That's very good. From Nina, listen to the parents. From Hazel, Lynn, acknowledge their feelings, inform the activities of the child, and move on to what to do to progress of the child's development. From Maria Sheila, read all the diagnoses and see how you can work together and help the child while supporting the parents as well. Very good. From Rolika, listen to parents and tell them that we will work as a team. Yes, teamwork is very much important. From Sabrina, validate the feelings and offer support. From Maria Luisa, listen intently. From Christine, I'll listen, I will do some research. From Yeshe, listen to them. From Sudha, listen carefully, analyzing the problem and gross motor activities can be given. Okay, assure them that their son needs them. Yes, very good answers. From Renuga, home modification. From Sumipa, address physical intervention. From Indra, moral support. From Woody, comfort them. So these are very good answers. And there are 82 responses that are also very good. And I could not read each and every one, but I would say that this audience has a lot of good ideas to be given to the parents. And I could see here an audience that would be very supportive towards the parents. Let's go to the third case. Case study number 3. Tasha is an adolescent with an intellectual disability. Her parents feel guilty and think that they have caused her to have the disability. Because of this, she gets everything that she wants. As a teacher, you feel that this is interfering with her growth. What will you tell the parents? Okay. Yes, we are here to support. And then what is the issue here? Ano, the parents here give everything that the child wants. Okay, first convey support, yes. So we have here Tasha, the case. Show them empathy. Yes, you show empathy. Of course, you show empathy. But what about this case? Because the parents give all everything that Tasha wants. So would we be giving everything that the child wants? Okay, learn the interest. That is good. Okay, understand that there would be negative effects. Yes, Irish. Okay, yes, Sudha, to give them full support. And then Anna would say psychoeducation. Yes. Myla would say collaborate. And then Nita would say necessary accommodation. Yes, that is very good. Tony Ruth would say, give the possible consequences of their action. Yes, you let them show that there would be negative consequences. From Nikki, tell the parents that the child's condition is not their fault and remind them that the child needs them as parents and guide them not to give everything. That's very good. Refer them to experts from George, from Vidya, treat them as a normal child. Tell them that giving too much love is not really good at all. That's very good. From Wong Yi, give advice and offer resources of the consequences of this act. From Renuga, parental counseling. From FIBA, emotional therapy. From Gretel, ask the parents to give limitations on the child. From Shaita, explain that there are consequences. And there are a lot of beautiful responses. There are 59 responses that I haven't read yet. But as I have scrolled through the responses, these are very wonderful responses. Good job. And I hope that when you, and I'm sure that when you go back to your stations as teachers, you would be able to help parents better. So let's now go to the takeaways so that we can have more open forum. So for our takeaways for this session, it's very important that we are empathic to the parents. We should display compassion to both parents and children, students. We are objective when discussing matters pertaining to the disability. And it would be best to say that this is the condition that we are dealing with. And then we help the parents. We acknowledge the support of other people around and let them know that there are people who can help and care. And we savor the experience and we savor the victories that the child can have every day. Even if there is grief in the initial diagnosis, chances are as you go through life, this child would give you much meaning if you are a parent. And then support parents to create meaning out of the situation and enable them to understand that the situation can be better. And yes, there could be some things that could be done. We are not promising miracles, but there could be things that would surprise you every day. And then eventually, when we focus on the things that could be done, we accept the child's condition. And with that, I thank you and I open the floor to questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Grace. It was a very, very insightful session. I'm sure the participants would agree with me, and the teachers have a lot of takeaways as to how they have to connect with their parents. And a lot of parents were saying that they felt at ease listening to you. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us, ma'am. Now, before we move on to the question and answer session, let me take you through the upcoming events and the other things. On the 9th of November, we have Introduction to Academic Challenges Part 1. And on the 11th of November, we have Introduction to Academic Challenges Part 2. So, Part 1 is by Madam Geeta Gopi, and the other one is going to be taken by Miss Leah Grisila. So, we have it on 4 p.m. India time, 5:30 p.m. Indonesia time, and 6:30 p.m. Singapore, Philippines time. Do share the care with your individuals whom you feel could benefit from it, and the links of the upcoming events will be shared in the chat box. Do forward it to whoever you feel could benefit from it. Now, let me take you through the events page and how you could also access resources and make use of the questions tab. So for the step 1, you have to click login or register to sign up for the workshop. Then, if you see here, you have a lot of tabs. In the tabs, if you come to the question tabs, you can ask a question regarding the event. And those questions would be answered by our expert speakers. The questions with the most upvotes will be prioritized. You also have the resources tab where you'll find resources relevant to that particular workshop that have been created by the team Ability and the expert speaker. Do like and follow it if you find the resources to be useful and helpful to you. If you want to know about the related events, you could go on the related events tab and sign up for the other events that are in line. Another thing is you could also find all the workshops that you have registered for at the events page when you come to the My Events tab. Let me now introduce you to the new initiative by Ability. If you are a special educator who has been creating resources and helping the special needs community, you could become a resource creator at our platform. It's a 3-step process where you could create your profile, upload the resources you have created or curated. You would be receiving feedback and ratings from the community and building followers to your profile. You will be sharing this with over 40,000 educators and parents. The link to become a resource creator would be posted in the chat box and you can express your interest through that. You can also become an Ability Inclusion Champion, where you can share free and amazing resources and tools with the community. You can lead initiatives to spread awareness about special needs. You can run local and offline support groups and meet new friends and learn from each other. We have over 400 volunteers who have taken their first step to join Ability's mission. We would love to have you be a part of the Ability Inclusion Champion. You can check out the link in the chat box. Now, without any delay, we would now move on to the question and answers. Dr. Grace, are you ready for the first question?
Yes, I am.
Ma'am, the first question is by Ms. Ligaya Honofer, who wanted to know that there are times parents are in denial. We have been speaking about those stages, and sometimes denial leads to over-demanding attitude and also finding faults in teachers. What could be the best strategy as per you for parents who cannot accept their child's condition?
Oh, that is a very good question. First and foremost, people in denial. We have such a thing called the trans-theoretical model or the stages of change model. When someone is in the pre-contemplation phase, it would be very difficult for you to enable the person to seek for therapy. Let's say, for example, you have a person who is a drug user, and you would say, you need rehab, you need to stop smoking pot, you need to stop your your shabu, you need to stop doing it because it will harm you. If the person is in the pre-contemplation phase, he's not even thinking that, oh, there's a problem, there's no problem at all. Similarly, with parents, they would not see that there's a problem. So they would refuse to accept that there's a problem pre-contemplation phase. Sometimes it takes you multiple observations and multiple objective observations before the parent gets help. So your goal here is to little by little encourage the parents, and hopefully the parents come into a contemplation phase. In this phase, the parents are thinking, okay, I think things would be better if I get help. I'm already having these many problems with my child. So I would go to the contemplation phase because I'm thinking of it. You have to encourage the parents. Be very patient with the parents in order for them to go to the determination phase, wherein the parents are decided to seek intervention, and hopefully there's an action phase, that there is continued support until the desired results are there. But we also have to recognize that, like therapy, there could be a relapse phase wherein the parents would get disinterested. And we go back to the cycle. We want the parents to be in the maintenance phase where there is continuation of all the services that are needed. But in the event that there's a relapse, the parents don't want it again and are in denial again, let's be very patient with them. They are going through a lot. So we have to give them our patience and understanding. It's not you that they are angry with. They are angry with a lot of things. Next question.
So rightly put, ma'am. It is the patience that is very, very important when we are conveying anything to the parents. The other question on similar lines we have by Miss Khadija, ma'am. When we have been speaking about parents, there are times parents have over expectations and they insist for a super change in the child in a very limited period. How can we explain parents that change definitely takes time? What would be your take on how to go ahead in this kind of a situation?
That is a very good question because they think that intervention for a few hours, a few minutes would change the child. Initially, I would tell the parents that we will try our best and there are no guarantees in therapy. There would be successes, there would be limitations. Sometimes before you would get better, you would get worse. So there are no guarantees involved. And we are here to help the child with intervention. We are not promising you a miracle. So these are the developmental expectations of a child at his or her age. These are the gaps. We have to address the gaps little by little and explain how your intervention would be done. Always say that please also be patient with us as we are patient with your children. We are giving our best. And of course, your child has limitations, and we acknowledge these limitations. And we little by little help the child achieve despite the limitations. You can also explain to the parents that there would be sometimes that there would be a limit already to what will be learned. When there's already a limit, we look for other skills. We explore other skills that can be tapped, that could be enhanced, and we focus on the things that the child can do. Eventually, of course, there will be some choices that they would make, and they would have to rearrange the goals that they have for their children. Thank you very much.
So beautifully put forth, ma'am. Now we have another question by Sangeeta Karan, who wants to know that yes, we understand that parents need to be spoken to and counseled. Are there any tips on how to start the communication with the parent? Any starting point as to how we start off communicating with the parent on these lines about their child?
Okay, that is a very good question. How do you start? So first and foremost, have all of your behavioral observations ready. Have all the anecdotes ready. Have all the anecdotal reports, all the checklists, all the scales ready. And have also other people who have witnessed the event. And then call for a meeting and say that we are here to discuss the academic progress of your child. So give all the positive observations, the strong points first, and then focus on the things that need improvement. So these are the things that we have observed, and then focus on the positive. Now, given these things that we have observed, what might be the best solution to it? So elicit response from the parents. So I think that there is a need for intervention, or they would say, I don't know. So you could float the idea that there would be a need for assessment. You could go to these professionals and then explain, why do you need an assessment? Why does the child need intervention? Explain the possible trajectory if intervention has taken place. If there are issues with financial resources, you could identify a list of non-governmental organizations or public hospitals that give intervention. And then, of course, you have to also give them a menu of resources that they could do. So you always point to them that this is needed in order to help your child. And I am in no way, as a teacher, ostracizing the child. I'm not putting your child down. I just want to help your child. And we think that as a school, this would be the best course of action. And we also hope that you are open-minded about the situation. Sometimes you would need to tell them twice, thrice, four times, five times before they agree. You have to be very patient. Yes.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Being a support system and making them not lose their hopes is very, very important. You've answered a few other questions also in the course of answering this question. Now we have another question by Pradhan Prashanti, who says that she's a co-founder of a parent support group, and the major challenge she faces is that parents get into their shell and they do not see themselves as people who matter and people who need self-care just as much as their child with a disability. How can we convey this to the parents that they are people who matter?
Yes, that is a very good question. And self care is indeed an issue among parents with disabilities. Sometimes also, that could serve as their defense mechanism. In other therapy books, you would see this defense mechanism as this is the spacesuit that they would wear. Why spacesuit? Why the metaphor of a spacesuit? This is the the most comfortable situation that I am in. And I feel that as a parent, I should focus all of my energy to help my child in order for the problem to have a solution. So the more I focus on my child, the more solutions, the more progress I get. However, we also have to point to them that we are humans and there is a need for wellness. You could present literature on wellness if you are in a parent support group, or you could institute wellness activities such as exercise, such as, for example, talking about a healthy diet, having coping thoughts, maintaining support system. You could talk about these wellness activities in the support group in order for the parents to have a menu of activities that they could choose from and eventually apply in their personal lives.
Thank you so much for these applicable strategies, ma'am. Now we have a question by Rabia Sad, who states that when we talk about parents, there are times parents are not open about sharing their personal issues, about the ups and downs, about the home environment that may be affecting a child's performance. How can we get the parent to talk to us and how to deal with such a situation when they are too closed as a parent?
Okay, so when it comes to being open or closed, we also respect this because we cannot force something that people don't want to share. The best that we could do is to provide information, education, and communication materials to these parents because they don't want to talk about it. They are not ready for it. And there are times wherein parents are not ready for any therapy or intervention. So the best thing you could do is to give them information, education, and communication materials. Here are some very useful websites. Here is an infographic that would help you. If you have, for example, an email group or a chat group, you could upload there some infographics, some simple how to do it articles in order for the parents to read them. And of course, you could always have a support group among parents, and you ask what they have practiced, you ask them about they have read in order for you to know if they have really participated in the activities. But when it comes to people sharing some personal experiences, we also recognize the fact that they might not be ready to share, and we respect their decisions. So it's not a matter of I'm forcing you to talk about it because I want to help you and you are shoving help down to their throats. No, parents are going through a lot, and we have to understand that there are various degrees of grief, disbelief, emotions that they are in. And sometimes just by listening to them, just by letting them know that you love their children, that you show concern for their children, these parents would feel happy. And eventually, hopefully, they talk to you. Yes.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Respecting the parents' decision is extremely important. And since we're speaking about parents, a key aspect that you spoke about was about the parenting style that parents hold. So there's a participant, Fiba Asif, who wanted to know how can one deal with a over pampered child and how to orient parents not to be over indulgent or overprotective in these times.
Yes, that is a very good question because parents can be very overindulgent. It would be best for you to have a lot of parent webinars or parent consultation meetings, and you discuss these things. You can invite experts, you can give resource materials, you can talk to them about parenting styles because most probably they don't know about parenting styles. That's why they become overindulgent. That's why they become permissive. That's why sometimes they become so authoritarian. So so you have to give parenting sessions, and we do not assume that these parents know everything about what they are doing. Sometimes it would be best to have discussions with the parents, and through these discussions, these lectures, this forum, these webinars, the parent would be able to understand consequences of their action. And then also, it would be best for us to give them modules as parents. So what are the things that they should do? What are the things that they should do at home? What positive behavior supports can be given to our children with disability? So if you have guidelines given to them and when you coach them on what to do, they would be able to modify whatever actions or behaviors that they are showing. Whatever intervention is given at home, whatever parenting style, this could be all modified when we give them guidelines and coaching.
Psychoeducating parents is important
Yes.
in this. Thank you so much, ma'am. Now we have another question. Uh, on the parental perspective, where there are times where disabled children are being abused in the society. How can we protect these children from being abused by the society? What are your takes on this?
Oh, yes. I also volunteer for child protection. And indeed, a lot of children with disabilities get abused. So first and foremost, uh, it would be best for us to teach our children what to do. So for example, don't talk to strangers. Don't don't eat the candy or the chocolates that the strangers offer you. When someone wants to grab you, you run. You can bite. You have to teach them how to defend themselves. And then always teach them that these are the safe places that you can go. You also can teach them that when people want to talk to you, let them tap. your shoulders. Do not let them hold you in other places. When people want to talk to you, tap the shoulder. It's also very relevant to teach them that no one bullies you. So you discuss to them what is bullying. You can also discuss cyberbullying and what to do if if you get bullied. So for example, I would teach them, so what will you do? You can block the bully. You can tell your parents and let your parents report to the social media administration. And if the bullying is too severe, you can teach them to, okay, you report to the police. So these are the things that you can do to help abuse that is happening. And yes, a lot of children with disability get abused.
True, but helping them to understand what is abuse really helps. And when moving on to another question, ma'am, there's a participant who wants your views on certain points, like as a society, how can we make it easier for parents and children with disabilities to cope up with their situation and live a normal life without being socially declined and being judged by the society?
Okay, so that is a very good question. In the episode in my previous webinar on the different types of disabilities and the red flags, I talked about disability, impairment, disability, and handicap. And hopefully, we are creating a non-handicapping society. So how do you create a non-handicapping society? Of course, there is law, and there are a lot of laws on disability on various countries. And of course, the international mandate on the UN Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disability. So we have that as an international mandate. We have local mandates. We have ordinances. We have municipal laws that govern people with disabilities. Second, advocacy and awareness. These activities would help raise awareness. These activities would help people know more about the disability and be open-minded towards persons with disability. Another strategy that I have read in the literature is to have media exposure. So there are some times wherein the lives of persons with disabilities are featured. So for example, if I would watch TEDx, TED Talks, and I would see there Dr. Temple Grandin. She has autism, and how wonderfully she discusses her lectures. I would look at famous people with disabilities who have overcome the situation. Perhaps if there would be media exposure, according to some um, experts in media, there would be awareness and there would be more acceptance of these people, that there are some talents and abilities that these people have. So that would help change perceptions and attitudes. Of course, mothers, families, brothers and sisters, teachers, we could all advocate to have an inclusive society for persons with disabilities because they too have a contribution to society.
Creating awareness really helps overcome a lot of problems in this manner. And now we have been speaking about, ma'am, about the collaboration that parents and teachers should have. And on those lines, we have a question by Maria Luisa, who wanted to take your view on would homeschool collaboration be of help to parents of children with special needs? Would you suggest monthly meetings, and or how long or what duration should be there for the follow-ups to understand the need and development of the child?
It depends on the type of severity. So I would really suggest regular meetings. It depends on what you agree upon. Sometimes parents would be there weekly because the disability is quite severe. Sometimes it would be a monthly follow-up. Sometimes it would be a quarterly follow-up. So it all depends on the agreement, the level of severity, and of course, the availability of staff, because you are also human and you cannot do everything as teachers. So it would be best for you to devise a schedule. How many students do you have? If you are teaching 40 students, it would be impossible for you to have a meeting with the parents every day and every week and inform 40 parents about the progress. And then also when it comes to meeting, would, for example, would a checklist help? Would an anecdotal report help? Would a descriptive report help? So you can report progress in many ways. So you can say that, okay, for you to check on the daily progress, open the workbooks, open the worksheets, or these tasks have to be mastered. Please check if the child does this at home. So in that way, progress is also monitored. So when you have a lot of students, it would be best to think of creative ways wherein you could convey progress to the parents. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have a monthly meeting. You could convey progress in a lot of ways.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your insight on this question. Now we have another question. When we were talking about parental involvement, there were certain sentences where parents get into things like, why me? This kind of attitude can affect the parental involvement. So, when this is a core negative belief and it can affect parental involvement, how can we help parents overcome this, and to what extent can it affect the parental involvement?
That is a very good question because there are core beliefs. And core beliefs are like glasses that we wear. So when we wear these glasses, things change. So it's very much important to examine the thought. So I have talked about this in positive behavior sports. So if you feel that the thought is irrational, first is to examine the thought. Is it me? Why me? Are you really to be blamed? So why me? Sometimes you don't have the answer to it. So what would be the other thoughts that would replace why me? And we could also ask for the meaning. What is the meaning of that why me? And sometimes when you let them contemplate on the meaning of why me, they would realize that, yes, it's why me. And it's me because I am a parent, I'm a mother who could give extraordinary love to a child. It is why me, and I am thankful that my child has this condition because I cannot accept the fact that if my child were to have no disability and then he would live that way, he would be out with his peer group and they would be drinking and then they would be having all of these wild parties. Perhaps I could not accept that as a parent. So you have coping thoughts. You also debate your core beliefs, that these beliefs are okay, irrational. And instead of saying why me, you could examine what is why me doing to me. So a practical counseling strategy would be, what does why me do to you? To what extent does why me affect your life? What are our other solutions to this why me problem that you have? And among the solutions that you have proposed, what would be the best solution? And then implement the solution. That would be a practical counseling strategy that focuses on problem solving. So you're not having any psychotherapy there. You're just solving the problem of why me. So there are a lot of things that you can do.
Analyzing thoughts and solving that problem through your strategies will definitely help. We'll take the last question for the day today, ma'am. So now that we have been speaking about the child disability collaboration, there's a question from Asma Ansari on a line who says that who should be aware of a child's disability? Is it everyone or only the concerned persons like teachers?
Well, of course, aware if the disability is obvious. There are no eyes. There's, for example, there's a shorter limb. Of course, everyone would know about the disability if it's obvious. And then, of course, if the child has obvious behaviors such as hand flapping, whole body rocking, head banging, it would be obvious that the child has something wrong, and there would be some preconceived notions coming from strangers if they see the behavior. Now, when it comes to, for example, emotional and behavioral conditions. So, for example, it would be best to have a specific group of people, just know it, not the whole school. So for example, the teacher concerned, if the parents want to disclose. And when you look at disability laws, it says there that the person with disability, therefore the person has to be diagnosed with disability. There should be proper identification that the person has disability, has a right to reasonable accommodation. So if ever teachers have to give reasonable accommodation, such as extending the time for a test, such as um, making the test in a different format. So these are accommodations that could be given to the child. You have to of course disclose the disability or the condition to the teacher. Otherwise, there would be no reasonable accommodation. So whoever would do the intervention or the accommodation has to know that the child has a disability. Of course, accommodations are given because there's a reason. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the entire school knows that the child has disability unless the child talks about it. And sometimes disability becomes an embodiment. So disability now defines identity of a child. So for example, I was talking to a deaf child. I said, are you hard of hearing? And so, no, you call me deaf. So deaf becomes an embodiment. So I said, why? Why do you want to be called deaf? And that person says, because it is who I am. It's I am. It's my embodiment. And the way I communicate, the way I tell you things, the way I deal with people, all of these I have embodied. So sometimes disability can be an embodiment. And in that case, the person, usually it's in adolescence that embodiment takes place. Yes, I have a disability, but I don't see it as a disability. I see it as me, as my identity. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's a weakness that I have. This disability will make me behave this way. I have talked to a person with autism. He's quite successful in his career, and he said, yes, I have autism. And I don't deny the fact that I have autism. And in fact, I'm not me without the disability. But this also means that I have risen above the disability. So the disability here becomes an embodiment, and that defines the person, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that would be a weakness that has to be born. Sometimes they could see this disability as a gift or a strength. So we respect also these people who would want to tell everyone that they have a disability. So it depends on the person.
Such a wonderful way of expressing it to our audience, ma'am. Thank you so much for patiently answering all the queries in depth with strategies and live examples. I would again like to remind the participants that we have the upcoming workshops on the 9th of November and 11th of November. The links of it would be posted in the chat box. Do book your slots. And Dr. Grace, before ending the session, any last words to our participants from your end?
Okay, first and foremost, I would like to thank all the participants who are united. We are here because we are united, that we want to spell a difference in the lives of people with disabilities and their families. And when we support the families and when we enable these parents to accept the condition of their children, they become better parents. And of course, we will have better students. Together, let us create a non-handicapping environment, an inclusive environment wherein these children with disabilities can flourish. I wish you all the best as teachers, and for the parents here, I wish all of you the best. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Grace. What a wonderful message to all our participants and audiences. Dear audiences, for now, we take a big bye from Ability. See you all at the other workshops. Have a good rest ahead. Thank you so much, Dr. Grace. Thank you all.